Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Louisville Forum. I'm the president, Greg Condra. We meet the second Wednesday of every month at Vincenzo's restaurant. The Louisville Forum is a nonpartisan public issues group founded in 1984. Louisville Forum hosts debates and discussions of contemporary and sometimes controversial public policy issues that affect the greater Louisville community. Although we may take up issues with a national interest, we try to highlight the local perspective. For more information on the Louisville Forum, our programs, or to make a reservation, please visit our website, louisvilleforum.org. University of Louisville, reviewing the past, looking to the future. To set the table for us today, I did a Google search, such as anybody maybe considering sending their son or daughter to Uofl might do, someone thinking of relocating a business to Louisville might do, someone considering working for the university might do, and quite a lot came up. And I spoke to Greg about this a little earlier. This is just to kind of remind us of the situation he's inherited and is doing a great job of solving for us. Back in October of 2008, Dean Robert Fellner, fraud involving $2.3 million. March of 2009, the university was accused of, quote, handing out degrees. Again, Mr. Fellner. He allowed a student to register and defend a dissertation in only one semester. October of 2009, Coach Pitino and Karen Cipher. Probably enough said on that. February of 2011, Alicia Ward from Uofl's Equine Industry Program was fired for stealing $463,000. Carrie Johnson, business manager for the athletic ticket office, stole more than $100,000. Susan DeWitt, chemistry department, stole more than $70,000. July of 2013, dean of the law school admissions program, Brandon Hamilton, $2.4 million. March of 2014, 3 officials were paid during 2013. Let's see. Yeah, it says Dr. Ramsey was paid, twice as much as their normal salary to take early retirement. There's a lot on that. Okay. April of 2014, Perry Chadwick Vaughn, Uofl Department of Family and Geriatric Medicine, indicted for stealing $2.8 million. April of 2014, Uofl's top lawyer, Angela Koshwe, K-O-S-H-E-W-A, paid twice her annual salary to exit and keep quiet. December of 2014, Vice President of Human Resources Sam Connolly was criticized for being a toxic, abusive leader. July of 2015, Courier-Journal reported Mr. Ramsey was paid 2.5 times more than the average of the Atlantic Coast Conference other 14 presidents and chancellors. All of these universities were ranked higher academically. Nonetheless, Uofl's Board of Trustees decided 2.5 times wasn't enough, and they gave him a 3% raise on top of that. October of 2015, we had the photo at the Halloween party. Does everyone remember that? Okay, led to student protest. October of 2015, Katina Powell's book, Prostitutes, provided to the men's basketball players and recruits. November of 2015, $185,000 a year Director of Alumni Relations, Deborah Ditzer, taxpayer-funded trips to run marathons. December of 2015, Executive Vice President for Health Affairs, Dr. David Dunn, and Chief Information Officer Priscilla Hancock, and retired healthcare executive Russell Bessett misused university funds in a nonprofit in a for-profit business that they were involved in. December of 2015, Daryl Griffith, Associate Vice President for Health Affairs, arrested for drunk driving, blowing 2.5 times the legal limit. February of 2016, Uofl announced that because of the NCAA investigation of Katina Powell's sex allegations, the men's basketball team would not participate in postseason play. And it involved more than 24 women. September of 2017, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office are investigating a pay-to-play scheme to entice athletes to attend Uofl and other schools. So, as I said, you've got your job cut out for you. I think the consensus is you're the right guy for the job, and we're thrilled you're here to talk about the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. This forum has such a nice reputation in the city of Louisville, and I'm honored that you've invited me to come today and talk a bit about Uofl. Greg, thanks for that nice walk down memory lane. It's a good way to digest a quickly eaten lunch. I'll do my best. So people frequently will ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing, or how I find the energy to do it, and the why is simple. I've worked here for 23 years. I have seen, unfortunately, and read about many of the things that Greg just listed, which are easy to find on a simple Google search. And it's frustrating, and it's also energizing when you see those kinds of things and you know that there's a way to fix them, and a desire then to become part of the organization at such a level where you can actually start to make an impact and change things that very clearly need to be addressed, and many of which should have been addressed long ago. The how do I do it? I try to keep a good, healthy routine. I'm very lucky. I've got a great family. I've got a loving wife, Sally, who sacrifices to raise our family while I'm off dealing with these issues. And I believe it or not, I have 7-year-old twin boys. I know, it's hard to believe. But we are a very active, nice little family, and it gives me balance and the ability to go into work every morning and think about things from a nice perspective and with a fresh start. So when I agreed to take on this interim role in January, it was the third week or so of January of this year that this began. A new board, a new opportunity for Uofl to really start from scratch and go back and address a lot of issues. And the list of things that you heard, you don't come up with a list of things like that by chance. Those are symptoms of underlying issues, and an indication that you really have to get a fresh start, and you have to design the organization such that those kinds of things are a lot less likely, if not impossible, to take place in the future. And so that's a pretty broad task because the University of Louisville is a big place, a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, 12 schools and colleges, 22,000 students, 2,500 faculty, lots of buildings, multiple campuses, 5,000 to 10,000 staff, depending on whether you count full-time or part-time or both. So there are a lot of things to keep track of, and a lot of work needed to be done. When we began in January, I put a list together of the things that I knew were wrong, and I had been watching for a long time, so it wasn't hard to assemble the list. And no kidding, there were 100 things on the list that needed to be fixed. And I showed it to the board, and I said, these are issues. These are 100 things that I'm going to tackle. And I don't know if they believed me or not, but I said it's going to take a year, easily. This won't happen in a month. And I'm happy to say we're about 80 of the items down the list. So we're pretty much on track. This is a year-long project, and I'm a scientist by background. I'm a physician, and so I think about things in kind of a scientific, methodical way. And so I like to march down a checkoff list of items, and we had a serious list to work on. So what I want to do today, I'm going to be respectful of your time, but give you a few updates on things. I want to address a couple of issues that have been very high profile, but then I want to give you some updates on the future and some trends we're starting to see, which are, I think, really encouraging about where the University of Louisville is headed. So there's been an awful lot of attention to athletics, and this is a very important topic in this city. We don't have professional sports in Kentucky, so college sports are very, very high profile. They're of interest to many of our donors, certainly our faculty and students and the community at large. And so it's critically important that we support athletics, and we have an athletics program that we can be proud of. And we had some problems in athletics. I think it goes without saying that there were a number of issues that needed to be addressed. We were becoming well known all over the country for things that we don't want to be well known for, and we want to be well known for winning games and tournaments and titles, and making sure that our athletes do well academically, and those are the things that you want to be known for. So, in order for that to be possible, we've had to do some rather dramatic things, and we've had to make some changes. They've not been uniformly popular. I think that's clear. But what I'll say is that our board and our administration, we don't make decisions based on personal bias or based on personalities. We make decisions based on facts, and we make decisions in an earnest effort to do what is in the best interest of the university's future. And that's true of all decisions. And it's not to say people don't make mistakes, but we try hard to make sure we don't, because we check our facts, we check them twice, and we go to a lot of sources, and we try our best to make sure that things are right going forward. And so I'm happy to say we are working so nicely with Vince Tyree. I'm sure many of you know Vince from his efforts in the community over the years. He's a well-known, successful businessman, and has been a great partner in helping us make sure that the successes we've enjoyed in athletics become even greater in the future. And he has a terrific relationship with the students already, with the student athletes, with our board, with our administration, and he's a tireless worker. We were very fortunate in men's basketball to have somebody the caliber of David Padgett, who was able to, literally a week before the practice season began, pick up and take off. And this team is ranked in the top 20. They'll do well. They've got great talent. David's only 32 years old, but he's an incredibly mature young man, and has displayed a lot of poise in a very tough spot that he was placed in. So we still, of course, have some issues to deal with. I will be going to Atlanta in December to conduct an appellate hearing process before the NCAA related to one of the items that Greg mentioned on his list, the recruiting violations that were identified in Minority Hall. And it's tough to stand up and talk about those things, because it's an embarrassing story. The university has not tried to suggest that the story was not true. I have never tried to indicate that did not take place. All we're doing in terms of our appeal is making note of how the penalties were assessed, which we feel were not consistent with NCAA policy, and that is our argument. It's more of a technical argument related to the way in which the penalties were calculated. That's the entirety of what the university is going to be doing in December. And we believe we have a good chance to be successful because our argument is strong, and the goal here is to preserve the banner. The thing about the banner is that's a representation of the effort of lots and lots and lots of students who worked hard over time to make that possible. And it's not fair to penalize them for something they didn't do. And so that's why we're doing this, really for them and for the fans and for people who were innocent in the events that took place. So I want to go through and talk about a couple of other things that have received an awful lot of attention. Certainly the University of Louisville budget has been a topic of interest and of concern all year. And so, one data point doesn't prove anything, but I'm now able to say that we're going to be close soon to having 3 data points that I think might define a trend. So since I started in January, my first task related to a budget was to try to finish the second half of that academic year, which of course ended in June, set a budget in place for the current academic year, the July to June of 18 timeframe. And now, believe it or not, we're busy crafting the budget already for 18-19. We have to start 6-8 months in advance because of the size of the project and the number of moving pieces. So the starting point was not good. We were depleted of cash, and we were spending money faster than it was coming in. Not a good combination of facts. So we had to make some abrupt changes in January of 2017. My hat's off to our faculty and staff who had to swallow hard to tolerate some of the things that we simply had to do in order to quickly right the ship. It's not easy to fix a financial problem in a hurry. It's always nice if you have the luxury of time, but we didn't. So we made changes immediately. There was buy-in, a tremendous amount of cooperation from our administrative team and our deans and the whole campus community, and as a result, we were able to finish our fiscal year 16-17 $29 million ahead of budget and with a clean audit by Crow. So we're very proud of that. That's not what it looked like it was going to be in January when we were looking ahead and doing some forecasting. So then we put a budget in place for the current year, which is balanced. And that was a challenge on a couple counts. First of all, there was a $48 million gap between the run rate on what we were spending and what we could verify as revenue that was going to be received. And so that $48 million gap had to be closed in creating this balanced budget. The other thing that was challenging about it is that we had decreased revenue from the foundation because the foundation cleaned up its act as well, and they got their spending under control, and that's great for their sustainability, but of course it meant less income for the university, so that was something that we had to take into account in this budget. And then on top of it, we picked a tough year to do it, but we held true to our promise to the students to keep tuition flat. So we were the only state university in Kentucky that did not increase tuition. We had been given permission to do so by the Council on Post-Secondary Education, but we didn't. We kept our tuition flat because we really wanted to make a statement that even though U of L was having some tough times, we weren't going to solve our problems on the backs of our students. And so we had to forego what could have been some additional tuition revenue there, but it was the right thing to do. So you put all those facts together, and it was not easy to construct that budget. So, once again, a challenge for our faculty, staff, and campus community. 4 months into the current fiscal year, happy to say we're ahead of that budget. So we're a third of the way into the year. We're actually beating it. And to the extent that we beat it, that'll be resource available to us next year to apply to programs that badly need it. So now here we are, the third data point. So there's the 16-17 finish, there's the 17-18 current year, and now looking ahead to next year's budget, we are concerned that we could have a further cut in state appropriations because, of course, the challenges there in Frankfurt related to the pension crisis. And that's causing the state to look critically at all of the missions that they support, including post-secondary education. So we're working hard to put a good budget in place for next year and doing some scenario planning around the possibility that there could be a further cut in our state support. We had a busy year in 2017 related to health care, lots of high-profile issues involving our hospitals. So we had to return the University of Louisville Hospital to management by UMC, University Medical Center. That's a big deal. That in and of itself would have been a full-time job, but it was on the list of 100 things. And so, again, the work of many resulted in a real smooth transition. Kentucky One Health was very helpful in the process, and our team at UMC, including consultants and others that we had to bring in from the outside to assist, did a great job transitioning the management. And on July 1st, we went back under UMC control. We had a shortage of nurses. I think that had been widely publicized, and the hospital had been using a lot of temporary nursing staff as a result. That's not good. And so one of our first projects was to hire nurses. We hired 108 nurses in the first 60 days of UMC management. So in July and August, we brought 108 nurses to the hospital, and then that hiring has continued since. So we have been systematically replacing traveling nurses with permanent nurses. They're doing a great job. It's going to make a difference in our patient satisfaction and in the quality of the care that we're delivering. UMC also has a balanced budget. You'll notice a theme here. I like balanced budgets, and so we make sure that everything we run has a balanced budget. Other challenges that we've been dealing with, I inherited a university that was on probation with its accrediting body, a real serious problem. So the SACS, which is the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, Commission on Colleges, accredits Uofl along with 800 or 900 other schools in this part of the country. And the accreditation of the university was not removed, but it was placed in a probationary status back in December of 2016. What triggered that was the decision by the governor to replace the Board of Trustees. Now, the governor had reasons to do that because of the list that Greg read, but unfortunately, the Kentucky Revised Statute that was relied upon did not apply to post-secondary education institutions. And so that's why the Attorney General and the Circuit Court felt that the decision to replace the board was not legal because the statute that was relied upon did not take into consideration boards of state universities. So that set some dominoes in motion that then resulted in the accreditation probation. Once an institution is on probation by SACS, what they do is they do the same Google search you did, and they pull up 100 other things, and they say, now you're on probation for these 100 reasons. There weren't 100, there were 9. But it was enough that it has given us quite a bit of work this year. We've had a team addressing these issues all year. At the time of our site visit, which was in September, just recently, we had 7 of the 9 completely resolved, and since that time, we've resolved the other 2. So the SACS organization meets first week of December in Dallas. I've been asked to go to the meeting. I was hopeful that I would just go watch the vote. I was informed that because our case is so interesting and so high profile, that they want me to speak before the vote. So I get to stand up in front of these folks who are going to cast a ballot about our probation and give a talk about how we have addressed all these 9 issues. And hopefully I'm not having an off day, and no pressure of any kind, just the need to get your school back on full accreditation. So, but we're in good shape, and we fully anticipate that that the accreditation will be clean after that meeting. So some numbers that I think might help you understand why I'm feeling good about what 2018 is going to look like. We have an application process for students that goes on pretty much year-round. And we have been doing a strategic enrollment management program this year that is designed to grow the size of our student body and to find students from other areas. We have a regional strategy. We have an online strategy. There are various pieces to this student growth plan that we have in place. So if you go back 1 year in time, so November of 2016, we had 4,500 applications at that point in time that prospective students had submitted to join the University of Louisville. This year, same time, 7,262. Okay, so that's year over year, 4,500, 72, 62. Doesn't mean they're all going to come, but it's obviously it's a data point that reflects the level of interest on the part of prospective students about obtaining an education at the University of Louisville. So we're very excited about that. Jenny Sawyer, who is just a wizard. She is so good. She runs our admissions office and has been working tirelessly to help us develop this strategy. She sends me to Nashville and to Cincinnati and to other places to meet with high school guidance counselors and principals and others. And the students we're attracting, we're not just looking for any students. We're looking for good students. Our honors programs, which comprise about a fifth of our total students, we have some honors programs right now that have 4 times the number of applications that we had expected. So they have really overwhelmed our admissions office, and we're having, it's a good problem, but we are overwhelmed nonetheless with that level of interest. So the goal here is to attract not just any students, but to attract first-class students. The goal is also to make sure that our classes are as diverse as humanly possible. I'm happy to say that our current freshman class has 21% underrepresented minorities, 15.5% African Americans, 5.6% Hispanic and Latino. We have a thriving LGBT community on campus, and so the message is out that U of L is a welcoming place. So we're looking for diverse students, we're looking for bright students, and we're going to fill the campus with those types of students. A couple other things. So donors. We weren't sure what this year was going to be like. You know, when there's a lot of bad news, like you heard, scares people off. And so universities are very dependent on the generosity of those in the community that can afford to support them. And donor numbers had dropped in 2016, no question about it, and early 2017 in response to concerns about the stability of the university and the way it was being managed. That trend is thankfully reversed. We received $20 million in cash donations since the 1st of July, $3 million ahead of last year. It's actually ahead of the amount that we collected during the time when the billion-dollar campaign was taking place. That is hard for me to believe. So that was actually a structured campaign. Right now we are not in the middle of a structured campaign. This is a regular year, and we are beating a year from a structured campaign. So I want to see it continue before I'm ready to declare victory. But it's a great number to point to, and I think it's an indication that the university has a lot of friends and people who care about it. They've been dying for some good news and ready to support programs at the university. We have had our largest year ever in research. Okay, so the University of Louisville, I think you all know, is a level 1 Carnegie research institution. We're very proud of that. And this year we will do approximately $185 million worth of research. A fair amount of it resides on the health science campus, but not all of it. Many of our schools on the main campus, including engineering, are involved in this as well. Programs related to heart failure, spinal cord injury, environmental health, understanding liver disease and environmental effects on liver disease. At the engineering school, projects around nanotechnology, robotic technology, advanced manufacturing, 3D manufacturing. These kinds of things are all alive and well and receiving support from the NIH, the National Science Foundation, and private foundations as well. So we're proud of these efforts of our research faculty. These are really the byproduct of long-term projects that are maturing. Community relationships are always on the list of things that I like to talk about and brag about at U of L, because this has been a thing that actually did not decline in the last couple of years, but has slowly continued to improve and does so to this day, now under the leadership of Dr. Ralph Fitzpatrick. So we have about 450 community partnerships at U of L. About half of them are part of what we call our Signature Partnership Initiative program, and that is a program designed to help 4 specific zip codes in West Louisville that are in great need of economic development, education, health care, all sorts of issues like that the university is poised to help that community address. So 2 weeks ago, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary of the Signature Partnership Initiative, and in 2018, we will be breaking ground on a $90 million development project at the corner of West 18th and Broadway. This is through our partnership with Passport Health, which Uofl has majority membership in, and we'll be building the headquarters for those facilities there. There'll be healthcare. Some of our schools will be represented in the facilities. We're busy talking to the neighbors in the community to find out what they really need, what they would find helpful. And our plan is to really do everything we can to help bolster the economic viability of that part of the city. We are busy building buildings, so we're trying to keep folks employed who are in the construction industry. We have about $300 million worth of active construction projects at Uofl. And they will all be finished roughly the same point in time, next summer. So we're building a new academic classroom building. Right now we're calling it the Belknap Academic Building. It could very easily be, the name could be changed to the last name of someone in this room if you're interested. And please see me afterwards if that's the case. This is an $80 million building that's been paid for by the state. It's the most modern teaching facility in Kentucky. It's not just a new classroom building, it's a building that focuses on new styles of teaching. So actually our professors are having to go to school themselves to learn how to be more modern deliverers of the curriculum that they teach. It's an exciting concept. And so that building will be open for freshmen next summer. We've made a big addition to our student center, the Swain Center. We're making a big addition on the end of our football stadium. And we're doing an $80 million pediatric medical office building downtown on the health sciences campus. So all of these projects have been funded either through the state, from donors, from academic industry partnerships, or in the case of the pediatric building, from the rent paid by the physicians who practice there. So none of these are costing Uofl a penny, but they are obviously changing the landscape of our campus and the amenities we're able to offer for our students and our staff. And finally, hiring. There's been a lot of attention given to the fact that Uofl had a lot of vacancies and a lot of interim folks. I think there were as many as 18 back in January, significant positions that were either vacant or had interim leadership. We have been filling on average a position a month through the use of search consultants, search committees on campus, extensive involvement by the campus community in helping us with these searches. And I'm happy to say that first-class applicants are applying for jobs at the University of Louisville. Yesterday, we interviewed 5 candidates for a new role that I have created. The list you heard earlier today would not have been as long if we had had a vice president for enterprise risk management. Some of our board members couldn't believe that we didn't even have such a position. It has never existed. We created it this year, and we had the 5 finalists interview for the position yesterday. All of them are doing similar roles at other institutions currently, so these are people with experience, and we're thrilled that a role like this will be a very high-profile position at the university and a pulpit for us to basically say, we're not going to tolerate these kind of problems, and we're going to have a systematic way of looking through all of our areas of risk to see where we may not be doing all we can do. So that is a good start. There are a lot of other things I could tell you about, but I want to make sure there is time for questions. I see people have been writing things down, and you're collecting them in the back.
Yes. There are a lot of questions, so we're going to try to go through them as quickly as we can. The first question, President Postel, is how much risk is there to the university's accreditation since the school is on probation from the Regional Accreditation Authority?
So when I discussed the SACS, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools issue, that was the point I was addressing. We feel as though we have responded completely to every concern that has been raised by SACS. The Kentucky General Assembly was actually helpful in that. The law that SACS was concerned that had not been followed related to how the board was replaced. The Kentucky General Assembly actually changed the law, and so it made what the governor had done legal. Whether one agrees or not with it, it became a legal act, and therefore that concern was removed. So we feel very good about our accreditation status. There really has not been a concern about losing accreditation. The issue here is getting the probationary status removed, which we're anxious to do.
Reading verbatim the questions relating to the relationship between athletics and academics. First one, when will the university cease subsidizing Uofl's athletics program? The second of several, do you have any plans to change the emphasis between academics and major NCAA sports? Please elaborate. Sure.
So the financing around athletics is complicated, and it's easy to misreport it. It really depends on how you look at it. So in net, the university is not subsidizing the athletics program. Our athletics program has a budget of just a little more than $100 million per year. And the university, it's true, the university does provide money to pay for certain things related to athletics to the tune of about $7 million per year. However, you have to think about that in conjunction with the fact that athletics pays tuition for all of the varsity athletes up to a cap in an amount that's about $15 million per year. And the university doesn't waive that tuition. Athletics actually pays that cash to the university. So there's $7 million going from Uofl to athletics, but there's $15 million coming the other way for tuition dollars, and so the net is a positive 8. So I would not characterize the current relationship as a subsidy by the university. I think the second part of your question is, do we anticipate any major changes in the relationship? I don't quite understand that question.
The emphasis of sports, I guess, versus academics.
Well, so the answer is they're both important, and we are not intending to de-emphasize athletics in that we know it's extremely important to the community and it's extremely important to our faculty and our staff. That being said, very few student athletes end up making a living as professional athletes. They need to get a good education. And so our principal focus is that these are student athletes. It's important that they graduate. We're proud to say that most of them by far do. They have good GPAs. We have a lot of resources applied to making sure that there is academic success among our student athletes. And so this is just a matter of balance. I think the academics and athletics are both important for a university.
These are three questions that are all related to one another. What is the timing on appointing a new president? We hope you are interested in becoming the permanent president, and are you available for the position? And what plays into that is the third question, how will you govern different from Ramsey?
Okay, well, all kinds of questions there. So let's see. Yes, I'm interested. Yes, I'm available. I think that was two of them. Number three, the timetable, you probably have to ask the board. I know they have hired a search consultant. The board itself is the search committee, and my understanding is that they will be looking at candidates here this winter, and there'll probably be some kind of a decision late winter, early spring. That's typically the time frame during which these kinds of searches play out. So I would think that by February or March we'll have some idea. That's my best guess, but you'd have to ask the board if you want a more specific answer.
This is the double bonus round. If you're ready, sir. Who drafted Tom Jurich's termination letter?
Well, like any kind of HR process, it's not one person that drafts such a letter. So this is a combination of work by our administration, by our board, and by our legal team. We have lawyers who are specifically focused on how to properly manage HR issues, and so obviously they're heavily involved in the crafting of such a letter because it needs to be fair, it needs to be accurate, but it also needs to reflect the decision-making that the board took into account to make the final decision they did.
On the direct question, did you ever ask Tom Jurich to fire Rick Pitino?
No, I did not, and I believe in his interview he stated that as well.
With respect to the athletic program issues, decisions have been swift and broad. The writer says, well before facts could be established. Was any thought given to the impact on our local and state economies, the writer says horrific impact, as well as the value of U of L degrees to those who already have them?
Sure. Well, so what I would say is that personnel decisions usually do not revolve around single issues, and so I think I made a comment earlier that whenever we address a personnel matter, which of course happens a lot in a big organization, we take into account lots of different things, and usually it's not just one event that plays into the decision, and that certainly was the case here. In terms of the potential impact on the local economy and the value, quote unquote, of a degree from the University of Louisville, everything we're doing and everything I described today is designed to enhance the value of a U of L degree and to make U of L a more viable entity in this community. I think that it's important to look at how the University of Louisville is viewed, not just in our community, but in many other parts of the country. I travel for professional meetings, and it doesn't matter where I go. Someone asks me a question about U of L athletics or something. It's embarrassing, and so we're trying to change that, and we want U of L to be known for the kinds of things that we were talking about today.
These are a series of questions about financial support from the state. The Kentucky General Assembly has cut higher education for the past 10 years. There are legislators who believe we should invest more in Kentucky's universities, but what argument would you make as to why U of L deserves more money?
So over the years, and this problem is not unique to the University of Louisville. Many states suffer from this problem. States have a lot of things that they need to support, and there's never enough revenue from tax income to go around. So if you look at the entire financial picture at the University of Louisville, what you have to do is you have to add together the budget of U of L, the budget of U of L Hospital, the budget of our our physician group, and then add to that insurance interests that we have through Passport and KMRRG and other insurance entities. And we have about a $3 billion operating budget if you add together all of those pieces. That's about what it takes to run what we run at U of L. Of that, about $135 million currently comes from the state. So if you do the math, we're supported to the tune of about 4%. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a concern that could drop further still, and we could go down to 3% or so. I would submit that the value of the University of Louisville to the Commonwealth of Kentucky is far greater than that. The value of the students we produce to supply the workforce needs of the Metro and the Commonwealth, the industry academic sponsorships and partnerships that we participate in have a dramatic value to the state of Kentucky, and this would be the justification for them supporting higher education. If you look at statistics about how students perform, whether it's in mathematics or in English, there's a long way to go. We have little to brag about in Kentucky, and again, we are very interested in changing that. It's not going to happen without investment.
Playing into that is U of L is often ranked in many areas compared to its peer institutions. How is U of L ranked in terms of percentage of its budget in state support compared to other schools?
Well, I guess that depends on whether you're saying other schools in the state or other schools in the country. So in Kentucky, the state institutions all have the same problem. So we're dealing with a similar issue now. The University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville receive a smaller percentage of their overall budget from state support than the schools that don't have hospitals, for instance, or medical schools or large research organizations. If you're a university that doesn't do a lot of research or patient care or those kinds of things, your budget is pretty much tuition and state support, whereas ours, it has a much broader diversity of revenue streams. Now, if you compare Kentucky to other states, there's a lot of variability. There are some states that are similar to ours, or at the other end of the spectrum, you could go to North Carolina, And some of the state schools receive 60% of their revenue from the state. So it's dramatically different. I just can't imagine what it would be like to work in an environment where there was that kind of guaranteed revenue stream from the state.
We have several questions related to accountability. One person asking about the head of the finance committee during most of the years when issues were arising. Has anyone discussed the causes of the university's financial problems with that person?
Which person
The
are
person,
we talking about?
Bert Deutsch is the
Oh,
name.
you're talking about in previous years,
Right.
I see. Well, I've never had a conversation with him because he's not currently involved on any of our boards. I think that to run an organization the size of the University of Louisville, you really have to look beyond the current year. And you have to do careful forecasting. You have to make realistic assumptions. And you have to thoroughly verify revenue streams. You have to set realistic expectations with faculty and staff and deans about what types of investments can be made. And it's very easy to become overly zealous and try to build in a much faster way a bigger and broader organization and then just hope that everything will come together. If that works, that's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so we're trying to be very careful and very deliberate in the way that we're planning for the future. And so far, it's working. And it's critical that we have a balanced budget because there's really nothing to fall back on. If Uofl fails, I'm not sure who would bail us out. So we cannot afford to fail.
I'm reminded that question deals with someone who is a former Uofl Foundation person, and this next question also dovetails into that. Will the former members of the Uofl Foundation be sued?
Well, that is not my decision, thank God. I have enough other issues that are my direct responsibility. That's an issue that our current Board of Trustees is grappling with. It's a complicated question. With a lot of things to take into consideration, and I'm confident that they'll make a thoughtful determination.
There were a couple questions on this topic. What is the next biggest challenge and/or opportunity for the university? What can the community do to support Uofl?
So, we have a lot of challenges. I think two of the things that are on my radar screen. One of the things that keeps me up awake at night is the fact that not enough of our students graduate. Now, the number's going up, and it's way better than it was years ago, thanks to more on-campus housing and that sort of thing. But we have to get our graduation numbers up. The main reason that students do not graduate is they run out of money. The next most common reason is that they do not have adequate academic counseling. So we are working quickly to rectify both of those situations, but guess what? Both of those things take money. So we have a concentrated effort that is being launched by some members of our Board of Overseers to help me raise money specifically to help with that problem and to make sure that a larger percentage of our students are able to finish and get their degree. I can't imagine anything worse than somebody leaving the university with school debt and no diploma. It's just a nightmare. So we're going to make sure that there are fewer people in that category. The other thing, big challenge for 18, we are going to be upgrading our IT systems. A company the size of the University of Louisville is dependent on first-class infrastructure and IT support, and we have systems that are just ancient. And apparently no consideration has been given to this for decades. And so thankfully there are vendors out there who do a great job working with institutions of higher education and helping them find affordable ways to replace and then support systems that we need for research computing, financial management, HR, all the things that you might imagine are part of our world. So that there are other things, but those are a couple of big items on my list.
We have two back-to-back basketball questions. Brian Bowen has been cleared by the FBI. Will Uofl fight for his reinstatement by the NCAA?
Well, the short answer to that is it's a multi-step process, and so I think the way that story was reported suggested it was a simple process, and that there would be maybe just one decision, and then all of a sudden there would be a conclusion. I think what we will do Obviously, our objective here is to be fair with this student athlete and make sure that he is treated in a way that is absolutely fair and gives him the greatest chance of success in his career as a college athlete. That being said, we have to go through a whole series of steps to determine whether it's possible and or appropriate to make that decision. And we'll be looking out for his interests, but we'll also be making sure we protect the program.
Speaking of basketball's future, the next questioner writes, great team nationally ranked is now based on Pitino. The team is now based on Pitino, but now that both he and Jurich are no longer there and Uofl possibly paying NCAA sanctions, does that not gut the men's basketball program?
Well, I don't know how many of you have ever seen a coach score a basket. They usually don't. Baskets are made by students. And we've got a great team. And if you want to come out, if you haven't, you'll see it. These kids are incredible athletes, and their heart's in it. And so there's no difference in the talent on that team. And we've got a younger guy without as many years of experience doing the coaching, but he is working with tremendous talent. And I have every reason to believe they'll have a very nice season.
I think we might have time for one more. What effect or potential effect would the pension bill as proposed have on University of Louisville?
So there are two ways that the state pension problem has impacted state universities in Kentucky. Thankfully, one of them does not apply to us. So we are not part of the state pension program for our employees. That is not true for some of the other state universities in Kentucky, and so that obviously is a real challenge for them and one thing that we do not have to worry about. The problem, as I mentioned earlier, is that as the state looks at its various appropriations for all of its missions, that pension crisis is looming, and they're going to have to apply resources against it over a long period of time to fix that problem. And it puts everything else at risk. So there is a real possibility that we could see a downturn in our state appropriation next July as a byproduct of their need to resolve that. And that's why we're having to do some scenario planning around the possibility for even further decreases in state funding. This is going to make our donor support all the more important. Someone asked a minute ago, what can we or the community do to help? The answer is University of Louisville needs your support. I mean, we need everybody to go out, beat the drum, find ways to support us, whether financially or otherwise. This is a time for the community to recognize the asset that Uofl represents and do everything in their power to support it.
One more, actually. You have 60 seconds left, sir.
As president, you have presided over the termination of key sports leadership. While none have been charged with wrongdoing, please explain in detail the board's reasoning.
In 1 minute.
In 1 minute.
Well, personnel matters can only be addressed to a certain extent in public. So any of you who have employed individuals over the years know that personnel matters are genuinely best handled in a way that is respectful to the employee, and you don't put it all out there for people to read about. So I think that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is, personnel matters often are a decision by the institution about what's in its best interest going forward, and that does not require a crime to have been committed. I mean, there's an institutional decision about what's in its best interest in the future, and that's what the board tried to do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As a token of our appreciation, we have a Louisville Forum Mint Julep Cup.
Oh, nice.
It's finely wrapped there for you.
Wonderful.
But, I'll just invite you right now. Please come back next year, and you can get a match set of these so you and the missus can toast at the Derby, right? So I want to give a plug for, excuse me, for next month's program. This is a topic I'll bet you think you know about this, but you don't, and you're going to find out some really important things. Next month, we're going to talk about the issue of sexual assault and the prosecution thereof on college campuses. There are issues of protecting our young adults. There are issues of justice and fairness and due process, and you can find out about it all here next month. So you can make your reservations starting tomorrow online. And Dr. Postel, again, thanks for coming out. So appreciate it. And we are adjourned. Thank you.